Hey, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Burns.
Thanks so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here with you, Asher.
You're very welcome. For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
I am a wife and a mother. I am a professor of civil engineering at Georgia Tech. I would describe myself as a teacher. I am a believer, and I am very much a carer. Very much care about doing and being and taking care of people and the people that I love in my life.
Awesome. And I would agree with that. You're definitely one of the professors I remember that was very caring in the way you taught us geotech engineering and trying to wrap our brains around certain things. It's like, okay, that seems doable.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
How did you grow up? Like what ultimately led you into engineering?
So I came from a family that was very science and engineering oriented. My dad was an engineer. He was an aerospace engineer. He worked for NASA his whole career. In fact, he worked for NASA before it was even NASA. It was originally part of the Army. And he worked for them in Huntsville, Alabama. And my mother was a chemist. She was a research chemist, and she worked on solid rocket fuel. And they
Mm.
met in Huntsville. So it was probably, for me, being an engineer was probably fated, right? We didn't have much choice. I'm the youngest of three children, and my oldest sister was a mechanical engineer. She also went to Georgia Tech.
Mm.
And then my brother was a physics major and he went to school in North Alabama. So it was pretty much uh, in the family DNA, the science and engineering genes. So
Gotcha.
for me, I became a civil engineer because I was really interested in the large scale civil systems and those services that we provide to keep um, society functioning, essentially. I
Hmm.
really like that people serving aspect of what civil engineers do.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess I had a similar inkling where it was interesting because sometimes I wonder if I just kind of fell into it because when you go down the alphabetical order of engineering majors, like civil engineering is near the top, but then it's like you look at aerospace and they're like, I guess literally have their heads in the clouds or like they're just dealing with things that sometimes I'm like, that just seems like there's a lot going on there. But like civil engineering with geotechnical engineering, you can touch it, you can sense
Yeah.
it, and like there's a beginning and an end. Like geotech, I found more difficult, but it was manageable. And then it wasn't until like the last 3 years that I actually worked in the field. And like you were mentioning, and reaching back out to see, like, okay, hey, what's going on? What are students like these days? But like
Mhm.
being able to actually relate to something that you get to do later on seems like it's pretty neat. It's been pretty neat for me as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think one of the things about civil engineering and environmental engineering is that it's a people serving profession. I think that that really appealed to me quite a lot.
Mm.
I think also specifically when you look at geotech, I think that part of it, there's still a little bit of art left in that too, right? You have to be comfortable with a little bit of uncertainty since
Mm.
there's so much variability in the ground and the soil. We don't get to order our materials, right? We have
Mm.
to work with what we find at the site. So I think people who are drawn to geotechnical engineering tend to be a little bit more comfortable with a degree of probability in the
Mm.
work that they do. So I think that appeals to a certain type of people and doesn't appeal to a large group of people as well too. So
Got you. It's funny and until I linked back up with Aaron that was down in South Georgia and getting a chance to work in the field for the first time. I was like, you know, I find that is pretty neat being able to have a degree, but then still having like five different paths that you can go. And then
Hmm.
if one path doesn't necessarily work out, like there's always work going on, especially as it relates to infrastructure and needing to
Yeah.
always have that repaired or built back up, and just seeing the different ideas and the different people you come across in those fields.
Yeah, I think that's right. One of the things that I've seen, one of the cool things that's wonderful about being a professor is that you see the students you've taught, you see the trajectories of their career and you see them change over time, and you see maybe they start in one area and then they take a slightly different path, which then leads them in a different direction. And it's really wonderful to watch that evolve and change over time. It's been great to connect with people, 5 years and then 10 years and 15 years and see just the amazing things that people end up doing. I
Mm.
think one of the, if I remember this correctly, one of the statistics that I've seen at Georgia Tech is that something like a third of our students are doing totally different things 15 years after graduation or something like that. It's really the engineering degree gives you such a great foundation that you've got a lot of flexibility and a lot of ability to do different things with your career. Lots of different options as your path opens up to you as you move forward.
Right. Yeah, that's it. That's a good point. And I guess I'm curious, what led you to teach? Is that something you always knew you wanted to do?
No, it wasn't. So it's a good question. Um, so I was just telling somebody else this the other day. I'm not much of a planner, really, which is I was when I was younger, I used to feel really guilty about that because I knew so many people who had their career planned out in very specific steps. But I'm the kind of person who just tends to take whatever the best opportunity is for me at the time and then go with that.
Mm.
And so I went to undergrad and I'd say I enjoyed my first years of undergrad probably a little too much and got much more serious about being a student toward the end of my undergrad career. And similar to you, I took soils at the end of my undergrad career and found that I really loved it.
Mm.
And so I worked for a couple of years and then went back to grad school. And as I was in grad school, I just found because I went back to grad school because I wanted to learn more about geotechnical engineering. And when I was there, I just found I just really, really loved it. And several of my professors encouraged me to keep going to do a PhD and to teach. Uh, they really thought that it would be a good fit for me. And I probably really had never thought about it until I had their encouragement to start moving in that direction.
Mm.
And the more I went in that direction, the more I just really came to love it. And so stayed on and did a PhD. And then after I graduated, I went and taught at the University of Virginia for about 8 years.
Okay.
And UVA was a very different school at the time from Georgia Tech because Georgia Tech, when I was a student there, was very, very harsh on the students. Very much um, you can learn this and do well, and that's fine, or you can fail out, and we just really don't care. Whatever, there was not a whole lot of student friendly atmosphere at the time.
Mm.
So getting to UVA was a really different environment and a lot of emphasis on high quality undergraduate teaching. I did a lot of teaching programs there, lots of mentorships.
Mm.
So they really shaped my philosophy as a teacher. It taught me a lot about what it meant to be a good teacher. Plus, I had a lot of great teachers at Georgia Tech
Mm.
too, as an undergrad. Even though the climate was so harsh, there still were a lot of people who cared a lot about good teaching. So, put all that together to try to shape my own philosophy and what I wanted to do and to be as a teacher. So that's kind of how it evolved for me.
Gotcha. That's pretty neat. And I guess
Yeah.
from that, like going to such a drastically different environment, like what ultimately brought you back to tech?
I love Georgia Tech. I think it is probably one of the best places in the world where you could teach. The students are so committed to engineering and to being engineers. They really love the nuts and the bolts of understanding what engineering is. Students here work unbelievably hard, so it's a real joy and pleasure to teach. I think when you when you have students who are really committed to learning the material and who want to go out and be engineers, it just makes my job really, really easy, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. It's not a difficult thing to teach in this kind of environment. So for me, I think that it was really attractive from that standpoint, coming
yeah,
back and being immersed at a university that has so many people who are pointing in the same direction. Maybe is a good way to say it, right?
right.
A science and technology heavy campus is a really wonderful place to be.
Yeah. That's a good point because I can think back to a couple of times where here in the past 3 years I've visited with some of the other alumni that we went to the school at the same time. And then you can always tell that you're at Tech because you can see a student going from the library or just walking across campus and they're looking around like, what are all these people doing here? Like there's a football game or something going on. It's like football, like sports. What's
Yeah.
that? It's like I remember I think it was maybe our last semester they were shooting the internship movie with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson and like maybe 5% or 1% of people were interested in them, but like everybody else was upset that they were taking up our one of our the area that's connected to the library, the new commons area that they built, and we were just like, go do that somewhere else, go do that at state, go do that over there, go bother them, we've got exams, we've got things, we got to
Yeah.
graduate, and like we were just like zeroed focus on like we need this degree to get this job to like go build stuff just like that. It's
I think
very
that's right.
infectious.
Exactly. The intensity of focus, right? I really
Yeah.
love that about Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what's funny is like when you were mentioning the rigorousness of it, it feels like it wasn't until years of being away to where it's like you hear about tech beforehand. And for me, having been a transfer student to tech, so having to do the 2.5 years, it was still intense, but like immediately after is I felt like maybe I got out of a bad relationship or I needed like a break to where I was like, okay,
That was
like
exactly right. Yeah.
2 years out, 10 years out, 12 years away. It's like, okay, maybe it wasn't that bad. I'm not trying to experience like what do they call that? The Stockholm syndrome, but it's like, no,
Yeah.
I can see it for what it is. Like it did train me and it did help me to do better in life.
Yeah, I'd say it's like childbirth, right? You forget all the pain of the bad stuff, right? You remember the good stuff. Uh, so I think yeah, it's funny to hear you describe it that way. I think it's much less like that today than it was even in your time, right? I think we've gotten better. It used to be that Georgia Tech had kind of an open admissions policy, so we let lots and lots of folks in, and then we sorted people out once they got to campus,
Mm,
which is not a great way to do it, right? Tech's
yeah,
much more selective today, and so those kinds of processes have changed a lot. It's still a super rigorous
yeah,
school, though, and people still have to work super hard. So I think the rigor is what, when you talk to any alums, that's what they'll always point to when they look back on their time at Georgia Tech. So
yeah,
preparation for the real world, though, that's what we're shooting for.
yeah. I'd say you did a good job at you and many of the professors, and I'm grateful for that because having gone to Southern Poly before it, I was like, if I had to do it the same way, I still would go that route, going from like a smaller town to a smaller school that was associated with Georgia Tech and is now Kennesaw Marietta campus. And like having that gradual transition before is just like wide open. Everything's just going from then leaving tech to going to work at a construction site where you're the only engineer or you're working with other engineers. And it's like, okay, like something in the back of your mind still keeps you going to where it doesn't feel like the whole world is coming out from underneath your feet. But some days
Yeah,
it's like you just need time to like sit back and regroup a little bit.
yeah, yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot that, especially I think when you look at us as civil engineers, right? We're every day, literally, we're taking so many lives in our hands for the work that we do that we've got to be well prepared to handle some pretty serious responsibility. So I think that it's some big tasks that we're managing. So it's a pretty rigorous education that we should be going through. So those
Yeah.
preparation steps are really critically important.
Yeah. And even thinking back to some of the examples, I think like certain classes, maybe in structures as well as geotech, I think they might have an example of like the galloping Gertie, the bridge where it's like
Mhm.
it's experiencing these wind cycles and it's like you don't really get a you don't get a trial run for a prototype. It's like, no, what you're
Mhm.
building is gonna stay. And then the testing that you've got to do for the EIT, it seemed like it's much easier. And then to become a professional engineer and get your stamp and things like that, it's like you do keep in mind what it is you're doing. It's not just taking a test, but like the continual practice that other professional engineers they continue to really instill that. How would I describe it? They're very professional about what they do, but really getting a chance to work with a lot of people that have that care and candor, where it's that we care about our work, but we really care about the people that we do the work
Yeah.
with because it's like they build the relationships off of that. And years later, you can check back and see one of the funny things that I thought about in joining geotech and seeing there was like a seminar or something that they were doing, and it was on cone penetrometer testing, and they had Dr. Main up there, and I was like, oh, I remember Dr. Main. He was one of the other geotechs that I took for like my one of the only graduate classes that I took where I was like, that's what he taught us in there. It was like introductory to foundations design.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I heard you say a lot of things in that. And one thing that I think is always ironic is that engineers are stereotyped as so introverted and isolated, right? But we're really such a collaborative, team-oriented profession, right? Everything we do
Mhm.
is teamwork. Um, and then I think the other thing that you said that's really critically important is that our whole training model is an apprenticeship, right? We we apprentice to a senior engineer, and that whole training period that we do is reliant on good mentorship, right? Which is really all about people and people development. And we don't we don't throw young engineers out onto the job site with no supervision, right? We
Right.
train them up and teach them those skills and bring them into the community through mentorship and through guidance and through leadership. I mean, there's examples where that doesn't happen, right? And every once in a while things go wrong, but that's the way that we do it in our profession. But I don't know that the general public would know that, right? Which is
Right.
unfortunate. And I don't think that we advertise ourselves very well. It's a very nurturing community, though, right? We
Yeah.
we lead and guide and mentor our young engineers very well, and I think that's critical to the success of our profession. So, um, so I think that's part of what attracts me to engineering too. I think the
Mhm.
way that we do that growth and development of our young people is really important.
I do remember one of the things being able to do a work study with you, like working under one of your graduate students, you had made it a point to like have all the different graduate students that were working and the undergrads that were working with them into a group to say, hey, here's everyone that's here. A lot of us seem to be introverted, but it would be nice to um, take the time and kind of share our thoughts. Like you have very diverse backgrounds from different people, and just being able to see, like, okay, we I know that you guys are here at this school that's very intensive, but I'm going to take this aside meeting to like actually check in on how are you doing individually. And that's kind of
Yeah.
something that sticks in the back of my mind where I was like, there's a lot that happened in college over 5 years, 5.5 years. And I do remember like the time spent in the lab or like the people that I work in the lab with where it was like, okay, you spend a little bit extra time after class or even the classmates that you take the time to, hey, let's study together, let's do this lab together. And it's like, okay, we sat through, we went, we did this for an hour. Do you understand what this means? Do you understand what that means? And it's like, okay, like you're either doing flashcards or you're going through the textbook and you're like taking notes. And it's like, okay, like I'm not sure
Yeah.
this is going to come back up when you're trying to raise kids or change diapers or if you're your first day on the job doing an internship or something like that. But just remembering to those times that were taken aside to actually like build people up or just show that, hey, I care about the people here and you're not just like a number being passed along. That's something
Yeah.
I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think team building, right? I think that's really connecting with people. I mean, at the end of the day, all we have are relationships with people, is what I would say, right? And so that's really, really critical that we build those and that we maintain those, that we tend to those relationships throughout our lives. Very, very important. But it's easy to lose that when life gets busy and
Yeah.
overwhelming. Well, I
And
think
then,
yeah, one of the good things about growing older is you start to realize that life cycles and that some times in your life are going to be intensely busy and maybe you don't have as much time, but you'll come back to other times where things will start to slow down a little bit and you'll have a little bit more time for things like that. So just recognizing that things will ebb and flow and that you'll uh, balance will come and go, but there'll be times when you can restore balance when it feels like you're out of balance as well too.
yeah, that's a good point. And I guess with being in August already, I'm guessing the fall semester is here right around the corner. Is that something you're about ready to get back into?
Yeah, so fall semester starts for us in a week, so
Mm,
very soon, very soon. I am not teaching this fall, so I'm in an interim position at Georgia Tech this fall, so I
okay.
won't be teaching, unfortunately. But I miss that when I'm not in the classroom. I feel uh, there's a hole in my life when I'm not there teaching,
Mm.
unfortunately.
So I guess how's that different being in the interim? Are you allowed to share on that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm doing an interim position in the executive vice president for research's office.
Mm,
So executive vice presidents for research office. So in this position, essentially what we're doing is supporting the research enterprise at Georgia Tech. And what that means is all the operation functions that support researchers across campus. So that can include everything from proposal preparation to research lab space to uh, any kind of operations support. And then what I am working on is support of everything related to IT and the lab space questions. So trying to find more lab space, trying to
mm,
distribute lab space, those types of questions there.
gotcha.
Um, it's been really quite interesting, right? There's a lot going on at the federal level right now.
Mm,
And so that has put a lot of um, uncertainty into our day-to-day operations with changes in the grant structures and what's going on with those requests. So it's
mhm,
been a really big learning experience for me over the last couple of months. Been great, learned a ton, and have been very inspired by the work that I see by my colleagues at Georgia Tech. Just an amazing group of people who are so committed to doing incredible things. It's really wonderful to see.
Nice. Do you mind if I ask, were you voluntold or volunteered for the position, or was it something you were you were willing to fill in for?
Yeah, so I'm in an interim position. The previous person who was in this position went on to be chancellor for research at North Carolina State University.
Okay,
So I was asked to step in to her
gotcha.
position in the interim.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess
Yeah.
because the reason I asked that is because like um usually, as I'm seeing now, a lot of engineers are usually pushed towards management where it's like, okay, you can stay in your discipline and focus on that, but more than likely like having the rigorous training that we spoke of and like having the skills that you have and also being a personal person, it's like it's a natural fit to go and do those things. But sometimes it's like you take on things that might not be like the absolute number one, but also it's still to provide a service to meet the needs that are in front of you. And sometimes I guess it's hard to distinguish like for like for example, for it being something in the interim, it's not forever. And I'm guessing at the end of it, you'll probably have an opportunity to choose like, do I stay here or just do it long enough to have someone else come in and then I go back to doing the teaching? Because a couple of the senior people that I worked with, it was like, well, I like the position that I'm in. And it's like, I tried management once, but yeah, I don't want to deal with that and having to go with like stockbrokers and then having to report to the board of directors and it's like a lot of meetings and meetings and meetings and it's like, well, I guess
It's a lot of
sometimes you got to pick and choose your battles for what you can take at a time.
Yeah, yeah, I get their point. So it's interesting in the academic world. So I think that there's definitely a researcher administrator divide. Um, what I would say is that I see, and I've been an associate chair in civil engineering since 2013, I think. So I did part-time administration for quite a while. The way that I see it is it's definitely an act of service. So it's something that um, every university needs administrators to make sure that the operations of the school or the university are going smoothly. Georgia
Mhm.
Tech is a pretty high friction place, I would say. So there's lots of things that are pretty difficult to get done if you don't have people behind the scenes making sure that the trains run on time, essentially. So I tend to describe myself as a friction fixer because I know who can get things done where on campus. And so when we hit a roadblock, I can connect people and say, hey, can we fix this? Um, and so I tend to have a heart for service. So I take joy out of helping keep those systems running smoothly and
Gotcha.
making life a little bit easier for my faculty colleagues and for the students at our school. So for me, it's just a positive thing because it's something I enjoy doing. But yeah, administrators in universities take a pretty bad beating as far as
Yeah,
reputations go, right? But for me, I love that the act of that. I love Georgia Tech very much. So to me, it's just benefit enough to make sure that the institute is running better and that that I feel like I'm moving things forward for the institute.
that's awesome. And having visited the campus recently, I'm sure like the remodeling and things like that that have been done, it's more of a campus wide thing, but just seeing the continued care and like obviously seeing your smile is also something that kind of reminds me it's like no matter how rough some things are, whether it's like in the day to day and you kind of look up, maybe you see a post on LinkedIn or something, it's like just reminding that there's always like a bit of good going on, even in the hard
Yeah,
times, because it's like everybody doesn't want the leadership position, whether it's in teaching, administration, management, construction, wherever you might find yourself. But it's always nice to be around the people that do brave
yeah,
some of that friction to be like, okay, well, if they're willing to go, I think I can trust them and I can get with that and see if I can add my little bit to it and help push this car along.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when you see like campus is stunning now, right? It is
Yeah,
just such a beautiful place. So you see that people in administration can make just really big differences in people's lives, right? When I was an undergrad, it was campus was a mud pit. It was concrete mud everywhere, literally. I'm not
yeah,
kidding. So when you look at what it looks like now, it's just amazing. It's amazing what can be done when people have vision. So
yeah.
so I think it's a real testament to those accomplishments.
That's true. I guess I'll maybe make this last point, but speaking to that, um, another thing I think the administrators and the professors do well is bringing in people, whether it's someone from like the research department or someone from the alumni organization. I know once there was a lady that came and spoke to us about donating to the campus, like once we graduate. And I must have been having like a terrible day, a terrible week. But like as she was talking about it, I was so frustrated where I was just like, what do you want me to give? I was like, I don't have anything. But then years out, where it's like I hear the undergrads that call and they do like the roll call, whether it's like a phone call or a letter or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm always touched to be like, it's good to see that excitement, that gleam in their voice, and also think like, yes, this is something that I'd like to contribute to because it has done enough, or not enough, but a lot for me having come since then. And just meeting other alumni and just seeing how excited they are to be like, hey, there's somebody else that went through the struggle, and like we have this thing of bonding to take in stride.
Yeah, yeah. Had- Have you ever seen John Mulaney? He does this bit about Georgetown alums when they call him to ask for money.
No,
It
I
is
hadn't.
hilarious.
I might
He
have to
says,
look it up.
I've already given you $250,000. What else do you want me to give you?" But no, to your point, right? I think the reason why Georgia Tech is a beautiful campus now, in large part, is due to the generosity of our alums, right? We can operate well, but the things that make Tech a much nicer place are because we get donations from alums, and that's what lets us put um, scholarships for students who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to attend Tech, and a lot of other nice things. The renovation of the Mason building, much of that
Mm.
was paid for by our alums. So there's a whole lot of things that we couldn't do without the generosity of folks like you. So it is very, very important and very helpful. So again, I'm glad that all the childbirth memories have faded. You're willing to help out for sure.
Awesome. And as you look to get into the semester, as you said, within the next week, what's something you're looking forward to?
Oh, the best part of being a college professor is every fall it's like this huge infusion of new energy from all the starting students. It's like a blood transfusion every year. It's just
Mm.
every year students come in and there's just so much excitement and so much hope and optimism. It's really the most wonderful feeling in the world. I think that it's the fountain of youth, really, is what it feels like. It makes you just have so much hope for the world because
Mhm.
folks come in and you see uh, um, you see people who know that so much is possible still, and I think that it really is a way to continue to see the world with fresh eyes. That is my favorite part Well, maybe my second favorite part of the year. My favorite part of the year is graduation. That's
Mm.
the when you see people graduate on that day, everybody is happy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's happy on graduation day. So that's probably my favorite time. But first day of fall semester is pretty close second to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Burns. It was a pleasure catching up and being able to record a little piece of this history for old time's sake.
So wonderful to see you again and to talk with you, Asher. Take good care. Keep in touch.
I will.